Welcome to Chalk Dust. It's the podcast that gives you a front row seat to some of the best classrooms in the world, using play-by-play commentary on real classroom footage. I'm Rebecca Birch.
And I'm Dr. Nathaniel Swain. I'm a teacher and instructional coach, working with schools and systems around the country on classroom improvement and school improvement.
And I'm currently Head of Secondary Learning at Catholic Schools Parramatta Diocese. I'm also completing PhD research on how explicit instruction supports student wellbeing.
As you might know, Chalk Dust is a different kind of podcast, and we really like to make sure that it's shared amongst your colleagues. So give us a like or a follow if you really enjoy what we're doing here.
I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands I'm recording from. I'm currently on Gadigal country.
And I'd like to pay my respects to the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations here in Melbourne.
Today we have Amber Haven with us. Amber is an educator with 16 years of classroom experience and a passion for bridging research and practice. She's a frequent presenter at education conferences, including Research Ed US Delaware, Research Ed US New York, Research Ed Denver, and the Thriving Educators Summit. Amber's been featured by The Learning Scientist and highlighted in the book Powerful Classrooms. Her work focuses on applying the science of learning to create an engaging, effective classroom while intentionally building students' content knowledge. Amber is particularly interested in helping educators translate evidence-informed practices into sustainable, practical teaching strategies that strengthen engagement and, in turn, create durable learning. Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. Hello.
So we've got a pretty exciting episode, actually, because Amber sent us a bit of a treasure trove of different classroom practices, and we've selected a particular sort of thread focusing on a practical lesson focus. So this is a really nice episode that we haven't been able to explore as much in terms of the demonstrations and practical side of science teaching, and we'd love to hear all of the ins and outs of your practice, Amber, to see how this all works. I think we'll get started if that's okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So we're going to look at a neutral buoyancy lesson. And so we're looking at different organisms in the water column that are neutrally buoyant, as well as things that float and things that sink, essentially. And this is a really exciting opportunity to talk about the value of conceptual understanding within important subjects like science. Did you want to just give us the lay of the land, I guess, in terms of how this unit has come together? And then we'll jump into some retrieval practice after that.
Sure. So I am building the STEM curriculum for our school. I'm a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade STEM teacher. And
Wow.
I try very hard to not think of STEM lessons as standalone activities. My goal is for every lesson and every unit to contribute to the students' growing knowledge of the world and their other core content areas, especially in science and literacy and social studies as well. So I'm constantly asking myself, what background knowledge can I help students build today that will make their future learning easier tomorrow? With that in mind, I chose to expand on the concept of density. And in doing so, I wanted to really bring in some target words to offer hooks for later learning. And so really building that schema is important to me. So this is just a lot of background and content building here in this lesson.
That's awesome. We'll see the retrieval practice as well as some demonstrations of the key concepts in a practical demonstration. And it's a really great opportunity to get your ins and outs on how to get that to work as good as possible, because we know that practical demonstrations are very illustrative, but also can move into the extraneous sort of zone if not properly managed, because it's fun to play with stuff, isn't it?
Right.
All right, we'll get started. This sounds awesome.
Okay. Boards up, please. Under your chin so I can see behind you. Ooh, I like these labels. I asked you to label what you could, and I'm seeing some differences, but overall, I'm seeing the surface, the sea floor, and everything in between. Say it with me. It's the water column. Good. Some of you gave me neutral in the middle. Either X marks the spot, or you labeled neutral in the middle. These look really fantastic. I can tell that you retrieved a lot of information yesterday. Erase those, cap your markers, set your board.
So just about that retrieval task, I'm guessing it was somewhat open-ended. I was trying to read the slide there. So they're drawing the water column from their long-term memory. Is this something that you've spent a bit of time on already, which is why it's sort of a more open-ended retrieval?
Yes. The day before, actually, I explicitly taught using a nonfiction text about neutral buoyancy and plankton and wanderers versus floaters and sinkers. And we did this water column over and over again to get that repeated terminology set in their brains.
Yeah, that was cool. A nice use of gesture. Yeah.
Thank you. So this is the following day. Students walked in. You can see opening routine on the slide. And I needed the students to have out their mini whiteboards. You heard me say, okay, we're going to do our 6 bricks next. So you see that they had already their Lego bricks in a layout, which just means laid in front of them. And then I just told them to draw a water column. And then verbally, I said, add any labels that you can. If you look in the image right there in marker and the text in front of me, there's just a very basic drawing of what I expected. So a surface of water at the top and a sea floor down below with sides, and then some of them labeled an X in the middle for neutral. So I was just looking for that retrieval from the lesson the previous day. They all did a really great job.
Did they take to those routines fairly well in terms of getting onto fast transitions and showing their work really confidently, 100% participation? Do you want to share anything there, just in case there's any tips for people who are introducing such routines for the teaching of science?
Yes, absolutely. Here you see multiple routines put together. This was recorded in April of the school year. So starting in August on day 1, instead of just introducing myself and giving background information for me, I got the students on the whiteboards right away. And I used the mini whiteboards as a way to introduce the students to the classroom. And in doing so, they got into the routine of how to use those. So a lot of routine went into that, just learning how to get there and what to do and what it looked like and where to hold the board. You see that I had to continue reminding students to have it under their chin so that I could see the answers behind them. Even though we practice all year long and I instill the routine at the beginning of the year, you have to constantly give those reminders to hover the board before you show them, or boards up, or where to hold it, or cap your marker, because those things dry out. So it's very explicitly taught.
And Amber, can I get an idea of class size over in the US?
This class is 24 students.
Okay, good to know.
No, that's really cool. Obviously, we've got more to see, but good to hear about how you get to this stage. If you're a science teacher who doesn't use mini whiteboards, I guess we're seeing how fluidly you can bring these routines in as long as you actually teach them and make use of them in your sort of daily work. Okay.
And we're going to use our 6 bricks today as a retrieval. So I'm going to give you some definitions from yesterday's reading, and then we're going to make some 6 brick stacks. Okay. So first, let's just remember what those words are. Hold off on the bricks. We're just retrieving. I'm going to read you the definition, and then I'm going to have you think for 3 seconds, and then I'll put my hands down. What do you think I want you to do when I put my hands down?
Stop.
Say the answer. What are you going to do when I put my hands down? Are you going to say your answer before my hands go down?
With non-example.
No, because we give everyone some think time. Okay, so I'll read the definition. 3 seconds of think time. When I put my hands down, what do I want you to do? Beautiful. First definition: the vertical space of water from the surface to the sea floor. You're telling me what the word for that definition is. Water column. Excellent. The next one: when an object neither sinks nor floats, so it hangs out in the middle. Think about it.
Whoa, very good.
Whoa, that was really good. So it neither sinks.
Love the use of gesture. Like, we've talked about gesture in a lot of places, but often high school and middle school teachers might think, oh, kids are too old for gestures. Just give us the pitch for gesture just so we can make a clip out of this comment, I think.
They come so naturally to me. I do it innately. So my students have really taken to that. And as I said earlier, I teach all the way up to 8th grade, which are 13 and 14-year-old students. And I am one of the only teachers in my school who will use dual coding, and not only with looking and reading or hearing, but also with like sing songs and pictures and such. And the 8th graders seem to cringe at first, and they're resistant to it. And they're like, no, Mrs. Avon, we are not doing that. So then it turns into me putting on a show in the front of the classroom. But when push comes to shove and we're retrieving the next day, the next week, or even beyond,
It works.
they are singing the little tune in their head or they're doing the motions. And so while they're resistant in the moment, it's still very helpful for them.
You hear a lot of secondary teachers say either that wouldn't work with my students, or the other thing is if I'm the only teacher, the students won't do it because they go to another class and no one does it. But I just find that's not the case. I find that it doesn't matter if it's a lone ranger out there doing these things, as long as the routine within that lone ranger is the same, week on week, and that you persist. I find that it's fine.
Absolutely.
And then with older students, again, they'll go with you because they're kind of mini adults and they like a giggle. So they'll just go with it. They're a bit less inhibited, actually, I think, than in year 8.
Yeah, it's an awkward period in that sort of middle years to early sort of high school. But
yeah,
it
but you're
gets
getting
better,
them in
doesn't
the
it?
awkward period. Yeah, it's great.
Very much. They
That's
look
awesome.
around at their peers and who else is doing
How should
it.
we be responding to this? Yeah.
And Amber, I've noticed that there's a lot of retrieval in your lesson that isn't necessarily part of the retrieval kind of component of the lesson. How frequently do you do those little checks for understanding? You just try to build them into the lesson as a continuous thing?
100%. Retrieval practice is an enormous part of my pedagogy, but it's not always this now we're retrieving this explicit moment as a do now or as a mini quiz or as something at the end of the lesson or a check for understanding. It's often mid-sentence or mid-direction giving, and just embedding the retrieval is, I've found, extremely beneficial for the students to make sure they're engaged and they're paying attention and therefore they're learning the material.
I think explicit teaching gets a lot of criticism for being scripted or robotic or rigid. And I think this is a really good example of where teacher expertise really has to come to the fore, because it's not about following steps necessarily or even lesson segments. It's about how to get that continuous checking and engagement and responding to the kinds of things that come up in front of you.
Yes. And that comes up with direction giving as well, not just content material.
That was a really good explanation and will be so helpful for people thinking that retrieval practice is this once-off event rather than something that's just woven into the fabric of the classroom. Really helpful. And just tell us about the bricks, because we're looking at some clips of the bricks here, and obviously some of them can't stop themselves from touching it. But what are the advantages of having this as part of the practical aspect of the retrieval?
Well, I wanted to have the bricks ready to go so that when we transition from this quick retrieval, we could get straight into the stacking. And you're going to show a clip of the stacking in the near future here. But it's so hard for the kids to keep their hands off of them. At this point right now, you can't see the desks. My administrators did not feel comfortable giving permission to see the students. So you're just seeing me at my pastor's perch here. But in front of the students, they've got 6 Duplo Lego bricks. So they're the larger size, and every single student has 6 specific colors. And right here, there you see. So the definitions that we retrieved at the start of this are then assigned to the vocabulary word on a color of the brick. So what I can do then is mix up the order of the definitions in the stack, and then the students see what term or target word is on what color. And so they're having to not just retrieve the information, but they have to know the definition, retrieve the target word, figure out which color that target word is, and then put it in an order in the stack. And so while that's a lot to do, their brains are just completely active and engaged. And one thing I love about this activity is it's silent. When the students are working through this, I talk about the importance of think time, but it's wild to actually see that think time organically occur because their brains are so busy on the task at hand. But everything that they're doing in this 30 seconds of building this stack is directly related to the lesson and to the content.
Yeah, so there's no off-task behavior, because everyone's thoroughly engaged in what they're doing.
And I think it's one of those activities where it could produce extraneous load if the behavior wasn't quite right. Between the looking at the board and trying to think of what the label is and then the order, I could see that getting really out of hand. But I admire your sort of commitment to doing hands-on activities. Hands-on activities actually terrify me. I try to avoid anything that involves anything other than a paper and pen and four walls. So I was watching this in absolute awe.
We'll just watch a little bit of that segment to see how you set this up as well.
Yes! Fantastic work. So we learned all of that just from a reading yesterday, remember? We boxed and coded.
If you're listening, that's the worksheet from the day before.
You learned all of those terms and definitions. So now what we're going to do is use our 6 bricks to build this stack. Remember, the definition is to the left. You'll match the word to the definition, and then you're going to build the stack using the words in the place of the definition. Do I need to explain that more?
It becomes a routine, doesn't it, that you can draw upon?
So go ahead and build your stacks. What do I need to move for you? You good?
Do you hear the silence in the classroom? All you hear is the brick.
Just focus. Satisfying to lock in your answer.
And 3, 2, 1. So for this stack to be correct, the vertical space from the surface to the seafloor is called the what, everybody? Very good. Neutral buoyancy. Something doesn't sink or float. Plankton. Wandering and drifting. Density is? Phytoplankton is the plant-like plankton, and zooplankton is the... Okay, give me a layout in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great job. We're going to build one more stack.
Love that routine.
Okay?
Yeah.
So this activity can kind of be transferred to anything. I guess when I imagined it before I actually saw the video of the stacks, I imagined that you'd written little labels on them, and I thought that sounds like a nightmare, but it really is transferable to any activity. It's just a color coding and ordering activity. It's quite genius.
Yes, I've done it with math problems where the answers could be in the stack and the problems are assigned a color or vice versa. That one has gone over really well, especially having a mini whiteboard right in front of the students so they can work out the problem really quickly and then build their stack.
So it's kind of like, in my mind, it's kind of like a substitute for multiple choice in a way.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Or a matching activity.
Sort of more fun than drawing lines on a worksheet.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. And easy to check. Like, it's very easy to just go through and visually.
Yeah, much easier to check those lines, to see the matching definitions on worksheets where you've got the lines matching. That's really hard to see whether they've locked in the answer the correct way. Whereas here you can just scan and easily figure out who's got the misconception, who doesn't.
Right.
And sometimes the lines are too easy. You'll have one student finish in about a millisecond and others are struggling to draw their lines.
Yeah, really cool.
So this video we're about to show you is a video of the students making that brick. And I just want to draw your attention to how quick this process is. It's not something that sort of drags lesson time away.
Intently watching and trying to figure it out. I love that everyone has to think for themselves. They can't just lean on a partner to sort of do the thinking for them. That's really clever.
Some students do look to the side and see if they're matching, but I've noticed that they have that just internal pride when they're able to do it themselves. In my
At least
classroom,
attempt before they error correct, maybe.
Right.
I was going to show this completed one as well to show how you've scanned it as well.
Okay, yes. So I have students in my classroom who have IEPs, And I have students in my STEM class who are off the charts in math and science. I have students who have strengths in literacy, and everyone is at different levels. And so when I'm able to look out and scan and see, okay, this student is working a little more slowly, I'm going to tap on their desk or tell them quietly, I need you to do the first three definitions. And then it just works to have not different expectations, because then I know that they need to work on the other three definitions at another time. But it really helps me to see where each student is and modify or adjust my delivery to their individual needs.
Often when you see things like, on a PEP, students like hands-on materials, what you imagine is a student up the back doing a completely different task with the Lego, maybe building an underwater scene, and it really sort of dumbs down what they're meant to be achieving. Whereas this is giving them the same learning outcomes, the same way to meet them as any other student, but there's differentiation built in. So I really think we need to move away from this idea of differentiation as being something that prevents really students from accessing grade level content.
And it shows you that you can get a good level of hands-on sort of engagement as well as cognitive engagement, which is what we're aiming for, that benefits all students. And it's not just the one person in the corner who happens to have those materials. So to build upon what you said as well, Amber, I talk about a gradient of challenge being available. So there's a low floor where everyone has that successful starting point, but where the end point is really up to where the student is up to in their learning. So they don't have to have that ultimate expectation of finishing every single question in the same amount of time as everyone else. And then you can assess where they're up to and where they get up to in the questions, which is quite handy. And it's very evident in your practice here. Just that little subtle thing where you can say, just do up to number 3 here is where I'm wanting you to be. And that's that reassurance that there's always more challenge available. There's always more that students can do, but where they're up to right now is just fine.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, we'll watch a little bit more of this one, and then we're going to go to the demonstration bit.
Okay, before I check your stack with the next slide, let's work from the bottom up. When an object neither
We're just getting so much repetition. I love that.
Little things that drift or living things that drift and are wandering. Good. How tightly packed matter is in an object. The upward push of water. And the plant-like plankton
Awesome.
is.
Nice reveal at the end there as well.
And how does your stack look? Excellent. All right, I'm going to give you a set of directions. So hands off for a moment. When I say go and not before, you're to do 4 things. Bricks and get them in a bin. Didn't say go. Number 2, you're going to make sure your boards and markers and everything are put away. Number 3, you're going to make sure your tabletop is cleared off because we'll be using the tabletops. Number 4, you're going to quietly be ready to see what our groups are. So first, what are we doing, everybody? Blocking the bricks. Second, what are we doing? Piper.
Good redirect.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk
Classic
about that a
primary
little
school.
later. It's been fun. What are we doing after we block our bricks, Gwen? Your board's away. Good. Give you the tingles. What are we doing after our bricks and boards? Hey, I didn't know anything yet. What are we doing after that?
You got to watch the video, I think, to see all the gestures that you're using. It's very clever.
And then number 4, everyone, we are
Yeah, there's gesture all the way through.
go.
And then we've got the same repetition of those instructions up on the board, so it avoids the transiency effect. They can check what they're up to. So we've got 6 bricks blocked up, put in bins, whiteboards put in bins, just cleared, check groups, etc. Really cool. Do watch the video of that.
Yeah, definitely. Amber, I noticed that you use the when I say go. Is it an Adam Boxer one?
That is Adam Boxer, yes.
Yeah. Can you run me through what things look like before you started to use these practices? Or were you sort of born doing these sorts of practices where you're very explicit about behaviour and several checks for understanding consistent gesture, etc.?
You can say I was born doing that. I was telling Dr. Swain at the beginning of this that my mom is Patrice Bain. And so she was going through her studies and the research going on in her classroom while I was going through my schooling and getting my college degree in elementary education. So as the research was unfolding in real time in a real classroom, I was hearing her feedback and hearing what was working for her while I was learning how to become a teacher. And so,
A gift.
yes, I feel extremely blessed. So I've had these practices, evident or metacognition, feedback-driven metacognition, retrieval practice, her 4 main power tools, as she calls them, embedded in my brain. And I've known how well explicit direction giving works, how well embedding the retrieval works, and just knowing that the outcomes are going to be where I want them. Why not start by doing those things?
I think you're really lucky because in Australia, we've definitely come out of a long period of doing the opposite. So high extraneous load, slightly chaotic inquiry, problem-led teaching. And then we have people on the podcast from the UK who have had 10 years of reform. So some of those people pretty much would have been born doing these routines. And in Australia, we're experiencing a lot of change and disruption in education where people are having to almost like relearn, which is a much more difficult position to be in. I think it's much harder to relearn a particular way of doing things than it is to learn from the beginning. So I think you're maybe the first guest who we've had on the podcast who's kind of like come out of the womb with these practices.
It is an advantage because, as you said, Beck, it's an opportunity to piece it all together from scratch rather than having to unlearn and relearn in terms of your pedagogical habits. And habits take a long time to form. And a bit of trivia as well, if you didn't realize who Amber's mum is, the work by Patrice Bain is renowned around the world, and Powerful Classrooms, as well as the first book, The Powerful Teaching, was really, really incredible for my thinking and for my work as well.
Here's another transition in a different class to show a very quick transition in routine from one activity to the next.
Go.
Hi.
Someone's trying to do it in rainbow order, it sounds like. Nice redirect.
No, don't throw them.
So what year level is this as well, Amber?
This was the 8th grade towards the beginning of the school year. And you could see the students are facing forward. And I could say the person on the left is in charge of gathering all of the blocks and getting them in the bin. And then the person all the way to the right was in charge of passing down the whiteboards. So everyone has a job. And it helps things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's so much less chaotic when everyone has one job and it's actually kind of convenient for some students to have no job because it means they're just sitting there waiting for things to be tidied up around them. It's a lot less movement and chaos. Very simple.
That's
that
cool.
Can also be purposefully selected.
Yeah, who's responsible enough for that job? Yeah.
Right.
So this video is Amber giving some instructions for a hands-on activity with potentially lots of mess and water and chaos. So the instructions have to be very tight. And we've got some resistant learners and Amber has to get their attention.
Here we go.
And everything in between. So this is our water column. You are going to be getting a cork. Okay, in your bin, you'll have lots of materials, but the most important thing in that material is this cork. Do you predict, don't shout it out loud, just in your head, do you predict that this cork will float or sink or be neutrally buoyant? Think. Tell me. Float, give me countdown to 3. 3. I mean, easy peasy. That's a float, okay? It's a floater. So what you're going to do is look at the materials in your bin. I have a lot of random stuff in here. There's no tape. There's no glue. There are some things that sink. There are some things that float. You have to manipulate, work with, change up, use these things in different ways to make your cork have neutral buoyancy. So that means it can no longer float. And I'm not going to take this big metal heavy clip and put it around my cork so that oh, I changed, it doesn't float anymore, it sinks. That's too easy. So it can't sink and it can't stay floating. It has to hover in this neutral, central position of the water column. What's your question?
Technically, when you dropped it.
No, it wasn't a technical because it sunk. I knew what you were going to say before you got it all out. It's up, Thomas, because the metal is touching the bottom and it's propping it up like a kickstand. Okay? It's on the seafloor. So here's another thing. It could slowly float. And it could slowly sink. But if it is
Good
going one
clarification
direction or the
conceptually.
other, it's not neutrally buoyant. Okay? It's got to be still. Yes?
Can we tie a string with a string that and just tie one end to the fork and then one end to the heavy part and then make it in the middle?
That would be using an anchor.
Yeah, well, I was thinking.
Right? So it wouldn't be, itself wouldn't be neutrally buoyant. Okay? Your bins might not match each other. Fellas? Your bins aren't going to have the exact same thing as everyone else's bin. They're similar, but they're not the exact same. Nope, you're stuck with your bin. Okay? I'm talking. What's in your bin is what you can use, and we're not playing cops and robbers. You're stuck with your bins. Okay? This is our water column. I expect to see you back and forth prototyping, testing, seeing if you're on the right track or not. Okay? 11:38. We've got 20 minutes to make this work. This is called the race of the plankton. I'm looking for the first team to have a neutrally buoyant plankton. Send one person up to get the bin. I don't know. What do you want?
Amber, do you think some of the calling out is excitement? They can see the tank, they can see the water, they can see the materials. Do you think part of it is actually, are they really resistant learners, or are they just excited about what's coming next and you're having to sort of put a lid on them wanting to jump forward and get stuck into the activity?
I'm going to say it's a combination.
Mm-hmm.
These, I called them fellas. These fellas in this class are very, very hands-on and are very enthusiastic with the doing in the STEM lab. And the day before, when it was completely brains on, sometimes they say this is a brain on day versus a hands on day. Mm-hmm. The day before, when we were reading and it was brains on, there was even more shouting out. So trying to distract, trying to one up the friend, trying to see if they can catch me and be smarter than the teacher. It all goes together with this group that individually, they are so fantastic and so smart and so cognitively dissonant from each other. They're all very different, but put them together and I'm just like, whew, that was a task every day to keep them just respectful of other people's think time, other people's physical space and work time. So like you said, were they just excited? Absolutely. They were so excited, but they were also trying to here and there one up the teacher or each other.
So we had a guest on called Dr. Mark Dowley who said in classes where everyone is really engaged, the students want to impress the teacher, and when they're a bit more resistant, they want to impress each other.
Yeah, so it's a task, isn't it, to try and keep them onto what's important and to keep them off the extraneous load of let's muck around or let's try and do that one-upmanship. Yeah. So here's a few examples of what the students came up with, and some of them are going to be successful and some of them are a work in progress.
Well, you are breaching the surface slightly, but it is breaching. So that little green piece is above the surface. It can't be above it all.
And it's so great as a check for understanding or a check for success. It's so obvious, isn't it? It's like, and you can talk about the concepts at the same time and map them to what they're showing and demonstrating.
Oh, it's a
now
slow
we have to add slow things.
So if that is slow, oh, what's happening there? That's the closest we've had so far because it's very slowly. You want to add just a slight more buoyancy. Slight adjustment.
Look at that.
I like that activity because it gives them immediate feedback. They know exactly what's wrong with that prototype, and they can go back to their bins and try some different materials.
It's quick, not too much mucking around.
Okay, just one more and then we'll do takeaways.
It's going down.
Very close. Yeah, I liked that one a lot. Oh, excellent. So Beck, from everything we've talked about today with Amber, what's your main takeaway?
Well, I have not completely changed my mind about hands-on materials because I don't have the skill that Amber has in managing behaviour and the materials themselves and keeping little hands away from noise. Noise really sets me off in the classroom. But I am willing to give it a try. I'm willing to think a bit more carefully about how I might do things like a check for understanding or how I might substitute a multiple choice and make it a little bit more cognitively engaging, especially in the junior years. So I'm not there yet, but it's something I'm willing to try and practice. What about you, Nathaniel?
I also loved, as my takeaway from this week, the idea of integrating retrieval constantly in what you're doing and using things like gesture or closed sentences, which was evident in so much of your work, Amber, to get students to do that thinking, even as an explanation is happening or even as instructions are occurring. So I thought that was really seamless, and having retrieval practice woven into your work seems like a really great approach that's not this formal sort of once-off thing that then is forgotten about when the lesson continues. It's actually a constant work in progress, which is awesome.
Amber, today has been such a joy. It's been so nice to have a different style of lesson on the podcast, but still so explicit with so many checks for understanding, and it's engagement like we haven't seen before. It's really balancing all the sort of things that we know that young people love, but with that structure and rigor behind it. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for having my classroom on your podcast. I appreciate you.
And you gave us so many clips that we may have to do a follow-up episode at some point because there's just so much for us to discuss another time. And we really appreciate you sharing your practice the way that you have. A reminder to all of our listeners that if you want to share your practice, you can follow a similar process. Send us an email, give us a comment online, and we'd love to hear from you and to see inside your classroom as well.
And just a reminder, you spoke and we listened. We bring you Chalk Dust X. All the videos for this episode will be in one place on YouTube. So check it out and give us a follow if you've enjoyed having all the options. See you next time.
See you next time.